Hello everyone and welcome to the first video of 2024. Well, first one I'm recording. Not the first one released, I don't think. Anyways, I'm back today. I'm here to react to a Matt Walsh video about Disney movies and Disney villains, so this one's going to be good. Probably. Anyways, let's just shrink this. And then we're going to see what the... Oops. Let's just make this all good. Then we're going to see what Matt Walsh has to say about Disney. Probably nothing inflammatory. Oops, that's not where it should start. Here we go.
It gets me into a lot of trouble sometimes, and maybe that's what allows me to see it this way. But either way, today in this very important video, we're going to talk about Disney villains who were actually right all along. So we'll go through 5 movies. Number 1 is Bambi.
So he's going to try here to defend the guy who killed Bambi's mother. Let's see how he does this.
Wake up, we have company.
Now, first of all, I've never met a child who actually likes this movie. I don't.
And therefore, the villain's right. You can't use the idea of a movie in order to, or like the likability of a movie to determine whether or not the villain of that movie, the fictional movie, was justified in their actions.
I don't know anyone my age who liked Bambi. Bambi is one of the weakest films in the Disney canon.
Again, that's an opinion, not a fact.
And yet it's viewed as a classic because it happened to be released.
But again, you act like your opinion validates. Again, this is nothing related. Like, he's just doing this to try to weaken the position of the movie, which is dumb when you're trying to, like, unless you're talking to a camera and you can't argue, no one can argue back.
In the 40s, although it could have been released last year based on the fact that the villains in this movie are the hunters.
What does that have to do with anything? Like, again, he's doing all this stuff to try to create a position based on something which doesn't exist. Like, he's basically creating fake villains, and by that I mean he's saying, look at the wokeness of the movie in order to try to justify what he's about to say, which no one in their right mind would possibly believe.
Who shot Bambi's mom.
No hasty,
Yes, bad villain.
careless shooting. There you are, fire away. Oh, good shot, boy, good shot.
But they were obviously entirely justified in doing so. First of all,
You can't make the claim that they were totally justified and then try to justify. Like, you have to lead into it. But anyways.
because venison is delicious.
You gotta be kidding. Like, I understand that he may not be, like, he's doing this for TV and he's doing all this stuff. The light's changing colors because the TV's on, so I'm gonna turn that off. You know, he's acting like there is this, like, he's trying to justify with some modern take on things.
Those hunters, I'm guessing, made some great venison
Again, you're just making assumptions.
steaks, maybe some deer jerky.
I don't think he actually took, if I remember the movie correctly, I don't even think the hunter took Bambi's mother with him. I think he just shot her.
Out of Bambi's mom, which is
Again, come on, man. It's a kid's movie.
a fact that could have brought Bambi some comfort and some.
Okay, so you're trying to say that the baby deer would be okay with the fact that his mother was used to make meat for the people who, or food for the people who killed her.
Solace if anyone had explained it to him, but they never did. Second, deer populations are out of control in this country.
And we're assuming Bambi takes place in America, I guess.
Like, they wreak havoc in ecosystems. They cause 1.5 million a year.
Car crashes aren't a part of any ecosystem. So you could say they wreck ecosystems, sure. We'll have that discussion, even though, again, you got to look at Bambi in the context of, there isn't this mass amount of deer. Anyways, you can't then say they also cause car accidents because those aren't two connecting claims.
Including hundreds of fatalities. So deer hunters are performing a service, and yet they
But again, when in you're arguing that they're performing a service in regards to actually saving people, and in this case, and in the case of Bambi, the only thing that's seen is that the hunter is actually encroaching on the forest.
They've been villainized in a movie that generations of bored children have been forced to watch.
No one's been forced to watch Bambi ever in their life.
Think about this. If
Or maybe, I guess they're, like, again, this is ridiculous.
Bambi's mom had not been shot and killed,
Okay, then she would have raised Bambi. Bambi would have become, like, the prince of the forest or whatever, and everything would be happy.
she may have gone on to, like, run into the road one night.
Again, we're assuming that, like, well, like, I think you're assuming an intelligence in animated animals, which you get in real animals, right? Like, the way that story was crafted was not in the same way where you would see a real animal doing whatever they do. Also, the whole idea of people encroaching on the animal's territory is literally the entire point of that movie.
Causing a family returning home from dinner to veer off into a tree and die.
You know what's interesting? I don't think he's used a single clip from the actual movie, just other things because of scenario. Like, his entire justification is, well, in theory, this chain of events could have happened, and therefore the guy murdering the person is good. Like, that's not how you make a coherent argument. I guess they're trying to make an argument about kids' movies, so, you know, whatever.
Whole family dead.
Like, again, he's literally using clips from other movies and other things to try to justify something which he hasn't even explained why it's right, except for this weird, potential snowballing effect that could happen if Bambi's mother doesn't die, even though Bambi also survives and there are other deer.
Think about that. Number 2 is Lion King. Now,
Is that it? That's his entire argument? What? Okay.
I'm not saying that Scar is the good guy in that film. I'm not
Okay, good, because I was worried for a second.
justifying what.
Also, this is going back to the Bambi thing. I don't, like, the only argument, like, the hunter wasn't even the villain of that movie. Like, there was an actual on-screen villain. The actual man element of it wasn't as relevant. But anyways.
He did. Like, killing your brother, trying
Is bad.
to kill your nephew is
Well, he did try to kill his nephew in order to get his brother to try to save his nephew in order to kill his brother. Also, he then guilted his nephew into believing that he was the reason his father's dead, like the nephew, and causing that one to go away in shame, and then also wreaking havoc on an entire community.
is inappropriate. I don't condone it.
Oh, good. I was worried again that you were condoning this stuff.
But all I'm saying is that, I think the character deserves a bit more sympathy than he
Why?
gets. For one thing, his name is Scar.
No, it isn't. His brother nicknamed him Scar, as many siblings, who have semi-rivalries would. His parents did not name him Scar. That is proven in canon. His nickname by Mufasa was Scar, because of the scar on his face.
Okay? I don't want to get into the nature versus nurture debate, but when you name your child
They didn't name him Scar. Please look it up.
Scar, you can't complain when he becomes a villain.
Again, that was a nickname his brother gave to him.
Especially if we have one kid that you name Mufasa. You got that strong name.
Again, didn't
The other one you name Scar.
What'll that make you?
A monkey's uncle.
So what did you expect? Also, I'm not saying that Mufasa deserves to be thrown off a cliff.
Again, you're trying to really justify the parental was getting killed thing. I think you really need to reevaluate your life.
But there's a fundamental, moral dishonesty to Mufasa that
And Scar is just perfectly coherent.
I always found deeply troubling, even as a child, the first time I saw it. I even said to my parents, there's a fundamental moral dishonesty in this film, Mom and Dad.
Do I have to say anything here? I don't know.
I said that to them. And here's why. He eats his own subjects.
Okay. I'll let him explain this, but
Okay, 1 minute, they're all celebrating the birth of his son. They're bringing gifts or whatever, they're cheering. And the next, they don't show this in the film. but Mufasa is hunting them down and
Well, they show him hunting. He's teaching his son how to hunt.
consuming them. And by the way, lions
Like in that scene that he's showing, they're literally showing him hunting. But yeah,
eat their prey alive.
okay. As opposed to killing them and then eating them, I guess.
That's how lions eat.
Again, like if theoretically lions killed their prey and then ate them, right? Which I'm assuming, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming he's making that because they don't. But if that was the case, wouldn't it be true that he would just say, well, they kill their prey and then eat them?
That's how Mufasa treated his subjects. And then he has the audacity to get all high and mighty towards Scar.
But again, the whole concept of like moderation, right? And understanding, look, there's a circle of life, there's a pattern to this stuff, is the logic of that movie, right? It's like there is a harmony, a natural ecosystem harmony. I just don't think you like animals or nature because both Bambi and The Lion King are both in their own ways about natural harmony. And if anything, you should be very pro Mufasa because you're pro the hunter or in Bambi.
Like, you can understand Scar's resentment. And to
No, I can't. Please explain.
make matters worse, they acknowledge it in the movie. So Simba asks his dad,
Dad, don't we eat the antelope?
they were just at our baby shower and now like we eat them. And that's kind of not cool. And Mufasa says,
I don't think he said that's kind of not cool. But
well, son, that's okay because it's part of the circle of life.
yes, that's correct.
When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass.
Okay, but that is not the same thing at all. That is not an even trade.
Well, what do you mean? Like the idea of you becoming the, wait, let me.
So give me a break. And also, your body doesn't even become grass. So that's
So, I mean, you can take this a few different ways. Again, I'm no scientist, but typically the way I understand it works is, either when they die, they decompose, they can become soil, which the grass grows in, and therefore one can argue through through the backwards kind of way that works, that they become the grass, which the antelope eats. Or conversely, this is just something they believe they are reincarnated as grass, which is a possibility because it's a kids movie. The third possibility is that they die, they get eaten by scavengers, and then those scavengers defecate, which becomes soil, which grows the grass.
bullshit to begin with. And I'm not holding it against the lion for being a lion. I'm just saying that there's arguably a certain intellectual integrity in Scar's.
Again, can you explain to me how overthrowing his brother and we saw what happened when Scar was in charge. It was terrible. The entire thing was devastated. The natural harmony was gone. The hyenas were just attacking people like animals, right? Like there was no natural harmony. That was the point of when we saw Scar in charge. We saw Mufasa in charge. There was a difference. Duh.
Outlook and behavior that you don't find with Mufasa. That's my point.
I don't even know what your point was, but anyways, Pocahontas. Oh, Lord.
Number 3 is Pocahontas. This is an obvious one.
Is it?
Villains in this movie are the evil white Europeans who are portrayed as brutal, greedy barbarians.
Yeah, let's not even talk about how the Native Americans are portrayed, or the indigenous people are portrayed in this movie.
Oppressing the innocent Native Americans who are all kind and generous and so in touch with nature that they can live.
Are we gonna act like they don't treat them like they don't portray them incorrectly? Like, are we just gonna ignore that part?
Literally talk to the trees.
Child.
Somehow everybody speaks perfect English, including
It's a kids movie. So I feel like he probably had a problem with live action Mulan where, I mean, I guess, I don't even know.
the trees. This is like the noble savage myth put to film. It's also really, we talk about wokeness in Disney films. This was the beginning of Disney's long march into wokeness.
Again, are we acting like Pocahontas was the peak, proper representation for Native Americans or indigenous people? Are we gonna act like that? I don't know, because if I recall, there was a lot of sympathy toward the quote-unquote savage invaders, if that's what you want to say they were called, even though I think they were not at all. I think there was very much a different view, especially for certain people. But
you could argue that that march began with the vegetarian propaganda of Bambi, but
there's no vegetarian propaganda. Bambi, the humans, again, he acts like there's this social commentary against humans. Their humans were barely present in Bambi.
in any case, the white settlers in reality were courageous and intrepid pioneers, not villains.
We'll build.
But again, it depends on what perspective you look from. Also, the way they were portrayed, by the way, in this is as, or at least some of them were portrayed as intrepid, whatever you want to call them, as opposed to villains. But again, it's a perspective thing.
Roads and decent houses and...
Our houses are fine.
You think that, only because you don't know any better.
But see, look, that's literally the point, right? Like, how is that quote-unquote woke? That's exactly what he said. He said how they should be portrayed. That's how they were portrayed right there in that clip.
So that's an easy one.
I want to say this.
Number 4 is Snow White. Now, this is another case where I'm not so much claiming that the evil queen was wholly justified in her actions. I'm
Oh, good. Poisoning people is not you're not justifying that, okay?
simply suggesting that the situation is a bit more nuanced. There's some nuance. There's some complexity, okay? Did Snow White deserve to be poisoned with an apple?
I hope the answer to this is no.
No.
Okay, good. So we're good so far.
But does she also bear some responsibility for eating an apple offered to her by a random old woman who showed up at her window laughing maniacally? Yes, absolutely.
All alone, my pet?
She never even asks, like, who the woman is.
Yes, I am.
Just the woman shows up at the window and says, hey, do you want an apple? And she never says, who are you? What are you? Why?
Excuse me, what the actual are you doing
Okay, so then what you're telling me is Rachel Zegler and her criticism of the movie is correct.
in my house?
This woman's walking around the forest, randomly handing out apples. There's no question. She just takes it and eats it. Doesn't bother washing it in the sink. So it's hard for me to feel sorry for
I mean, I don't remember this movie enough to know this kind of detail, but did they have running water in Snow White?
her. And for the record,
Like from a sink?
you should never eat anything if the person offering it is laughing while they hand it to you.
So, question. Is the concept of like teaching kids lessons lost on this man? Because the entire point of that is the fact that, you know, you shouldn't just eat something a stranger gives to you. That's like the whole point of the lesson that they're trying to teach there.
Never mind if it's an evil laugh. I don't care if it's any
Also, like, suspension of disbelief, please.
kind of laugh.
So the justification is she took something from a stranger and therefore deserves it. I don't want to see how he defends, like if this happened in real life, would he say, well, if for example, right, let's just say there's someone who is trafficking children, right? And they trick them by doing like do you want some candy thing. Would he then argue that the child trafficker was justified because the kid ate something?
And never mind that they're at your window in the middle of the day for no reason.
So again, we're just gonna justify that as well, because like we could justify that on every kind of, you know, subset of that, be that sexual assault, be that anything. If the person who does it is, you know, like if you should not have interacted with the person the way you did or whatever, then you should never, then they're never at fault. Because at the end of the day, in a slightly different context, what about Halloween? If you eat candy from a bag, or candy you got from someone who's laughing maniacally, I don't know.
Not to mention the fact that the whole Snow White fairy tale is really about home invasion and burglary.
No, like the first 5 minutes are, but okay.
This woman barges into the home of these clearly mentally disabled old men.
What? This is ridiculous.
Crickets.
Who aren't even half her size, makes herself at home,
What a cute little chair.
Now, eventually the dwarves grow attached to her, so you might say, oh, they're friends.
So then, isn't Rachel Zegler right in saying that this movie needs to be updated?
No, they were terrified when they first got it, like anybody would be. You get home and there's this giant, like, sleeping on your bed, all of your beds that she's helped herself to.
So again, Rachel Zegler was right, is what he's trying to say. Nicely.
Of course you're gonna be, anyone would be scared. And they were scared, but eventually this kind of Stockholm syndrome takes effect.
Okay.
And they become friends. And then when she dies, they put her in a glass coffin because they somehow had a full-size glass coffin lying around, which makes
Yes, because that's, again, the most unrealistic. Again, he's trying to do this thing, right, where he uses something else to try to justify his initial point without actually justifying his initial point in order to fool his audience, who probably all clapping like this right now. This is the thing. He said the evil queen, or whatever she was, like whatever her actual name was, in that movie is justified. She then says, he then pivots to, hey, Snow White was breaking into these people's houses and is a bad person. And also they had this, like, there's all these other unrealistic parts of this movie. The claim he's trying to prove is not that the movie is unrealistic because it's an animated kids movie made made ages ago. He's trying to justify that the evil queen is justified in poisoning Snow White, which she has yet to do. He has just point out inconsistencies in a movie. If you want to see that, just go watch some CinemaSins or something.
question their motives, frankly.
But again, like, you're trying to do these other things to distract from the fact that you have yet to prove your point.
And they display her body for several days.
Again, we've not talked about the actual bad guy of this movie who you said is justified. I don't know why she's justified, except for the fact that maybe Snow White shouldn't have done that and therefore she's justified, but that's the weakest justification I've ever heard.
Until a prince who has never met her before,
Again, still not
shows up
justified.
out of nowhere, kisses this woman who, for all he knows, has been dead for days. And this is back when they didn't have, like, the preservation of the body. There was nothing.
Again, we aren't justifying the act that caused her to end up in this state.
Was done to preserve the body. There could be some, there's some decomposing. I mean, yeah.
Again, how's the evil queen justified in what she did?
And he starts just kissing this dead woman. It's very dark.
Oh, again, by the way, if you think that's dark, don't read these stories that these fairy tales are based on.
It's a very morbid story. Think about it.
Then, again, you haven't actually explained how the evil queen is justified in doing what she did.
Like an insane person. Which means the evil queen is...
Oh, okay, now we're kind of coming back to after you kind of, fool your audience with, or tried to fool your audience with, oh, look, everything that happens is evil in this movie.
Maybe still evil, but her actions should at least be understood in proper context, and maybe...
What? You can't just say... So this is the structure of the argument that he just made, okay? He just said, this is the claim I'm going to prove. This is my premise of my argument. Now, I'm going to go and talk about something completely different. Okay, now, therefore, my premise is correct. Do you understand that's not how you make a logical... You can't say, I'm going to prove A, B, C, D, and then say, therefore, A. That's not how it works. You have to connect it back to the premise. The premise and the conclusion and everything in between have to be connected. He just went on a bunch of... He talked about the glass and the person breaking into the house and the prince, and he didn't mention the evil queen once.
You could argue that she even was an advocate for private property rights, and that's why she was so upset at...
It wasn't her property. She shouldn't be protecting other people's property.
Snow White. I don't... that's...
Also, she literally... Okay.
One interpretation.
No. That's not one... Oh, Lord. How are you going to justify turning the person to the beast? Or unless it's going to be Gaston. Oh, he's going to try to justify Gaston, isn't he? Oh, Lord.
Number 5, finally, is Beauty and the Beast. Now, we've talked about this before. I consider it to be one of the most important issues that I discuss. It probably deserves to be the subject of its own documentary. Gaston is the
He's going to try to justify Gaston.
Essential villain who was actually the hero of the story.
I don't know if he's actually seen these movies. Maybe he's just reading a script that someone else wrote for him, or maybe he truly believes this, but I mean...
Hello, Belle.
Bonjour, Gaston.
And
like, outside the fact that Gaston is just purely creepy, and especially if we're talking about, like, the animated movie. Ooh.
And I will insist on this until my dying breath. We're supposed to hate Gaston.
He just said he's going to defend Gaston until his dying breath. Got it.
Gaston from the beginning, because why?
Well, outside being obnoxious, I mean, like, he isn't really a villain. Like, there isn't, like, at the end, he kind of becomes a villain, and I think the live-action movie probably makes him more of a villain than the animated one does. But, like, he's more just a creep and a blowhard than he is, like, a villain.
He's manly
That's
and
kinda
in good shape. He eats a
No, the murder, like, I think the most evil thing he does is try to murder the Beast.
lot of eggs.
No, again, you're trying to do this stuff. You're like, Gaston is justified. He doesn't even say what Gaston is justified for doing because, like, again, I don't truly believe Gaston is really a villain in that movie, especially the animated one. I think he's a blowhard idiot and is creepy. I think the person who turned the Beast into the Beast is the villain of that movie.
Is that his crime? What has he done wrong?
It's not right for a woman to read. Soon she...
But again, he's an idiot. He's obnoxious. Yeah, we get that. I don't, like, again, you have yet to prove, like, I think this one you have to actually prove that he's a villain before you can even start to explain why he's justified in what he does, unless you want to just jump to the fact that his attempt to kill the Beast was justified.
She starts getting ideas and thinking.
They never explain it. And
Well, again, you're supposed to hate him because he's annoying. They don't expect you to hate him because he's a bad guy, necessarily.
the anti-Gaston propaganda is laid on thick from the very beginning, but even in
Well, no, the character's just annoying. It's not propaganda. It's a character. If you like the character, then great.
spite of that, it's clear who the real protagonist is. We see Gaston.
But, like, again, so if Gaston isn't the villain, okay, we'll give you that. Who is the villain? And then why are they justified in doing what they're doing? Because I don't consider Gaston to be a villain. I consider him to be annoying. I do think that what he did at the end was villainous.
Early in the film,
What a pleasant surprise.
right? He's dressed
just
to the
creepy.
nines. He visits Belle to propose marriage.
Say you'll marry me.
And
Okay, hold on. Pause it right here, okay? So look at the face of Gaston. Like this. Like, at the very least, he's very, very creepy. If this is his version of marriage proposal, like, you know. I think this scene pretty much sums it up.
he's obviously an advocate of traditional marriage and the new.
What? I can't even see what. Hold on. I'm gonna move my face. Traditional values start. Okay. I don't even know where this is going.
Nuclear family.
I don't even know where to put my face because there's so much stuff on here. Okay, let's just start on this side. So what he's trying to say is he's strong. He believes in marriage. He's a Christian, I guess. And he has facial hair. Got it. He doesn't, though. Okay, anyways. He works hard. He makes money. He's strong, and he smokes. Got it. Okay. I'm not sure. Hopefully.
He even says that. He makes a pitch for the nuclear family, traditional marriage to Belle.
Again, you are aware that Belle married the prince who was the Beast at the end, right? Like, I don't understand. I mean, I guess maybe, like, it's not like Belle went off to work. Did he watch Beauty and the Beast?
He's explaining.
We'll have 6 or 7.
Dogs?
No, Belle. Strapping boys like me.
You know, you want.
But she ends up with a prince. Like, if anything, you can probably make the argument against this movie than for it. But anyways, like, this is just factually incorrect.
Wants to have children. He wants to have a family.
Again, she literally marries the prince at the end. What do you mean Gaston is like the traditional marriage? He's just a creep.
It's a very lovely thing. Belle turns him down and pushes him into a mud pit.
I mean, again, if someone's like that, okay, are you not at liberty to, like, turn them down from, like, do you have to accept their marriage proposal if you don't want to? I don't understand, because she does get married to the prince, the Beast.
Total humiliation.
Let's see if she even met, like, again, he was humiliated because he turned down his marriage proposal, and by the way, still ends up marrying the Beast.
And yet by the end, Gaston is still willing to risk his life to rescue this woman.
Oh, well, in that case,
This woman who humiliated him
I wonder why.
from the clutches of a beast.
A beast who ends up being a prince who she marries, but yes.
And how did Beauty end up in that situation?
Why does this concern Gaston? She didn't, and I hate to say, actually, I don't hate to. What are we even doing here? I don't even know.
Yeah, she initially went to the beast castle, her dad or whatever, I think.
How did you find me?
But
Oh, yeah, I think he just kind of explains it away by saying she was trying to save her father. Oh, no, that's anti-nuclear family.
she had many opportunities to escape after that point.
Right, but she chose not to. Why? Because she was in love with the beast. Which is like literally the whole point of the movie.
Could have just walked out. I mean, she was in the prison cell, and then she's invited to dinner.
Yes, she could have left. The whole idea, the whole point is she saw beyond the beast's, like, you know, exterior and saw more inside of him. And, you know, much like Princess of the Frog or any of those other movies, right? Like, that's the whole point of
And
the
from that
movie.
point on, she doesn't go back to the prison cell. So,
Right, because she's not in prison, and therefore Gaston doesn't need to rescue her, and therefore you're wrong.
she could have left anytime. Any
Correct, and she chose not to. And she didn't need someone to come save her when she was perfectly fine and happy.
time. But she stayed.
It's like that scene in Super, right? Where the guy from The Office tries to go rescue his ex, who is with the other guy now, right? And she's like, no, I'm good. I'm not trapped by him. I'm just, you know, not with you anymore.
Is because she ends up falling in love with a non-human creature.
Who ends up being human, by the way. Like, if you wanted to do this, at least try to do it maybe with, like, Princess and the Frog. Doing it with Beauty and the Beast is ridiculous because she ends up getting married to a prince, a human being, by the way.
Who looks kind of like an evil water buffalo.
But again, the whole idea is like looks don't define who he is. He is a good person, or well, he was an arrogant person who became good, right? Like the whole Rose thing.
Keep something in mind. Belle didn't know that the beast was really a human prince.
No, that was the point. She, you know, loved who he was, you know, inside. That's what counts.
She had no idea about that. Okay.
Like the whole point of this is like it's the inside that counts, not like the muscles and stuff. Like Gaston's like blowhard arrogance is not the thing that matters. That's like the whole concept, like the entire premise behind the movie.
Hey, that's true. Look up on that. That you can
Again, okay, I can Google it. What's your point?
go back and watch the movie. She never is aware of that fact.
But that doesn't change the fact that she, you know, because the only way he could become a prince is she loved him for who he was and not being arrogant, right? That's how he became the beast in the first
It's just
place.
luck of the draw. So as far as she knew,
Again, I don't think it was luck of the draw. I don't know how many. Again, I don't know how many talking beasts there are just wandering around Belle's world. But I mean, if you want to play the probability game, the odds that he was like this can't be a normal occurrence, right?
she was entering into a romantic relationship with a member of another species.
I mean, again, first of all, it's a kids' movie. Second of all, she wasn't actually in a romantic relationship. I mean, she was hanging out with him, I guess, and she maybe fell for the personality. I don't.
Yeah, that's a simple fact.
Is it? It's again. It's not. He's using these argumentative techniques, which are flawed by their nature because they aren't actually making an argument. He's just kind of beating around the argument he's attempting to make.
Now, of course, poor Gaston, he didn't know about any of this. He didn't know that the
Oh yeah, poor Gaston. Oh, I feel so bad for him.
beast was really a prince. He didn't know that the woman of his dreams had fallen in love with a giant mutant mountain goat. All
By the way, the prince was cursed. Again, I feel like he forgot that. Maybe he didn't watch the movie.
he knew from his perspective was that Beauty had been imprisoned by a monster.
Again, he calls her Beauty, even though her name is Belle.
Her own dad told Gaston that.
Who's got Belle locked in a dungeon?
A beast! A horrible, monstrous beast!
I mean, okay.
And so he rallies the troops. He marches off to fight for her and save her. This is the villain of the story?
By the way, I'm pretty sure when she tells him, hey, look, he isn't a bad guy, I'm pretty sure he still attempts to kill him.
The man who ultimately gave his very life for the woman he loved?
He didn't. I'm pretty, and again, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. I'm pretty confident about this, but I'm pretty sure and I might be mixing the live action and the animated one, but like she told him, don't hurt him, he's not a bad person, right? And then he proceeds to still try to do it because of jealousy.
And the monster who kidnapped a young woman is supposed to be the one.
Also, you literally just said before that she wasn't actually kidnapped and that she could have left whenever she wanted.
We're rooting for?
Well, you don't have to root for her. You can root for Gaston, it's just you're gonna look like an ass.
That's just wrong.
You know what I was wrong? The fact that you had to make a 12-minute video about it.
And I won't stand for it.
You won't stand for it? Oh, Lord. What are we going to do now?
So, thank you for spending 10 minutes watching this.
Yeah, this is the biggest, I mean, I just, like, he can't even make, like, this is the thing. If this was a well-reasoned video, and there are villains in Disney, by the way, especially in those kind of early movies, where you can make cases that they should be given a little bit of sympathy. But when you try to, when your argument structure is so, like his argument structure, and I think this is very common with his stuff. This is the second thing I've seen of his, but like, when your argument structure is so fundamentally flawed where you make a claim, you kind of do a whole bunch of like, you know, logical fallacy techniques to kind of get around making your actual argument and then kind of conclude the argument. Or you try to change, like you literally, if I went through this, and you know, maybe that's something I do in the future, I could go and point out every single logical fallacy that he employed in order to try to make these claims, and I'll tell you, none of these arguments are logically sound. Like, he literally makes, like, 7 logical fallacies. He literally moves the goalposts multiple times in terms of what he defines. He literally will change the definition of words in order to justify his own, argument, or his own claim, I guess, because it's not even an argument. And then goes back when he has to justify his argument by saying the thing he changed to justify his argument is not actually the case. Like this whole Belle getting kidnapped thing, right? Or who the villain in Snow White actually is because, or how the Evil Queen's actions are actually justified. Like, for example, I would have thought, like, okay, Mother Gothel, can you make some logical argument that she maybe is, like, overly harshly considered the villain, or maybe is a little bit justified in her actions? You can. But, like, you don't, like, he doesn't try to justify the Evil Queen doing what she did. He just says, here's a bunch of things about this movie which are completely irrelevant to the premise of my argument, the premise and the conclusion I'm trying to draw. But therefore the conclusion works because you see all these other problems. Like, that's not how you make a sound argument. Like, if you're going to make these arguments, make them sound, make them logical. Please. Because then there could be an intellectual conversation had. There can't be an intellectual conversation had if your arguments are circular and basically hit every logical fallacy ever created and probably some new ones, like, that have not been created yet. Like, this is ridiculous. And it's not even like, you know, pro or anti-Disney or anything. It's just the fact that he truly cannot make a coherent argument. And I don't know if it's because he hasn't seen these movies. Like, I haven't seen these movies in ages, and I can poke holes in all these arguments and also point out the fact that they're completely just completely flawed within, again, the premises of them. And if you tried to make this to any human being that had any level of, like, ability to create logic, would be able to tear them apart, because at the end of the day, they're full of flaws. Like, he doesn't actually make any of the claims. He hasn't told us why any of these villains were, outside of, like, the Scar thing, which was just a factual error, but, like, why any of these villains were justified in doing what they did. And even the Scar one, there's a counter example of Scar being in charge and how bad that went compared to Mufasa. So say what you will, that movie literally says, look, this is what happens when Scar's in charge. It's miserable. Now, you can argue Disney is wrong in that, and you can make all your arguments you want. But, like, again, you're trying to make this argument. And by the way, in Bambi, if you want to make the real villain argument, there's another villain in that movie, another deer in that movie, who is considered the villain, right? So, anyways, thank you all for watching. This man has done nothing valuable for me here. Hopefully you guys learned something. And please subscribe for more great content, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.